All right, we'll give it a go here. Thanks everybody for coming out. This is presented to you by Vax International. They've helped get in touch with, I think, a couple of people here tonight, as well as obviously Disco, who I work for. And we do these seminars quite often. I do them all around the world to help foreigners in particular learn about Japanese job hunting techniques. And I was once in your shoes, so I kind of know how the process goes. So we'll get started here. So first off, we'll talk about a little bit about Disco, about how Japan is globalizing right now, how this affects the job hunting for foreigners, and a little bit about Japanese companies. So first off, once again, my name is Clinton Rodney Gleave, but no one in Japan can say those long names, so I just go by Clint. I'm from the States. I am currently doing APAC marketing for our global business development unit, and quite enjoy it. I come from a university called Utah State University, very small local university in Utah, western part of US. And I studied international business, but where I got involved with Japan was I did a volunteer program over here down in Kyushu. And I didn't know anything about the language, didn't know anything about the culture. And once I got here and started learning Japanese and started kind of interacting with people, really enjoyed it, really liked it, and I wanted to come back over. So that kind of led me into studying international business, as well as doing an exchange program quickly at Kansai Gaidai. So, ところで日本語でも大丈夫ですので、日本語の方が得意な方は質問などどうぞ。So, that's who I am. I work for Disco, as I've said. What we really focus on is, well, obviously it's the weird name, the interesting, it's great fun going around the world and saying, going to Australia and India and America, and I'm like, yeah, I'm from Disco Inc. And everyone just looks at me with this kind of blank stare. They're like, are you serious? That was your company name? Anyways, so it stands for Development of Information Services for Career Opportunities. It does have a decent meaning. And what we really do is we focus on the two main turning points in people's lives. The first one that we believe in is the choice for higher education, whether you're going to go to college or not, whether you're going to go, what you're going to do. And then after you receive that education, what you're going to do for a career. Definitely two major turning points in life. And we try to support students as well as companies, as well as educational institutions at those major points, whether it's through marketing or different educational opportunities. So that's who we are. We're trying to globalize Japan. I don't know, I'm sure you guys have dealt with that a little bit in university and maybe with personal relations here. We're working on it. It's a slow process though. So what we do is, if any of you guys are, who's graduating next year? 2016, okay. Is anybody graduating this year? A couple people? Okay. And when are the rest of you guys graduating? Like way after? Already graduated? Already graduated? Okay, okay, great. So you know, Japan, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but they go very much, they have a recruitment schedule that is very strict here. And so we provide Nikkei Shishoku Nabi. It's one of the biggest sites for new graduate finding jobs. Marketing opportunities and big events and stuff like that. We have something like 35,000 students come out to one of our events in Tokyo Big Sight every year, and just crazy Japanese job hunting. We also do international ones like Job Fair for International Students that's up there. We do like Tokyo Summer, Tokyo Winter Career Forum, Boston Career Forum, different stuff like that. And we also have a lot of resources. If you're at a major campus here, if you go to your international department or your career services department, they'll probably have some brochures from us about different ways of job hunting and how to do it effectively. So that's what we do. So let's get into Japan. It's in a very interesting time right now. We talked about globalization already. This is why. So you guys probably see this in school and in studying all the time, but Japan has a shrinking population and they have an aging population. And both of those are accelerating at a rate that is very new to Japan. I don't think there's any countries really like this, especially that are at the forefront of the world as far as an economic power. Anyways, so we're at like 2015 by now. These are figures from a couple years ago because the Japanese government doesn't put them out very often. But either way, we're looking at, the blue area is working people, or people under 65, I guess, and the red area is people over 65. So we're going into 30 years from now, 40 years from now, we're going to have almost half the population not working. If you include the children, it's maybe even more than half of the population is not going to be working. That means that you have a very small number of people having to support all the elder people as well as all the upcoming youth, right? So, and Japan has great social programs, great healthcare, great educational systems, debatable, but they put a lot of money into that, and suddenly if you have a lot less people putting money in with taxes and with corporate taxes and personal ones, etc., they're going to run into some problems. And the easiest example, I guess, is, I mean, they have 127 million people, 125 million, I think, this year, population in Japan. If they're only going to have 89 million in 2055, then you just lost 30% of your buyers for your product. So if you're selling 100 TVs today, well, Japan probably won't sell TVs in 30, 40 years, but you're going to be selling only 70 TVs 30 years from now, 40 years from now, unless you go outside of Japan. So Japan's always had a very domestic focus. They really haven't gotten outside with most companies. Everybody knows the big ones like Sony and Mitsubishi and Nissan and maybe Rakuten even kind of lately. But they haven't gotten out enough. And so a lot of companies right now are trying to globalize their workforce in order to get outside of Japan, to escape this shrinking market. So I think I already touched on all these. Shrinking domestic market, they've had quite a bad GDP situation because of this. Strain on taxpayers, largest debt ratio in the world. It is a scary situation economically sometimes. But the companies are the only ones that can change this. So what they're doing is they're going global, right? Everybody hears global all the time, right? Like global, 何がある? Global 人材, global 化, global 育成, global, I don't know, just like global everywhere, right? All the newspapers, all the TV programs, everybody's talking about going global. I go into an appointment with Japanese companies quite often, and they're like, yeah, we really need to go global. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? Sometimes they don't know, but Japan in general, they're getting a much better idea of their global strategy right now. And part of that incorporates, it ties into us because they're looking for more global people with different backgrounds. So we do a lot of surveys with our companies. This is a survey to over 10,000 companies, and we ask them, are you going to hire non-Japanese people this year? Or did you hire Japanese people this year? This is the actual hired. So in 2012, only 20%, 21% of companies said they did hire a non-Japanese person. It's not that high of a number. It has doubled almost in 2 years, and the numbers are even higher. So our survey in 2014 was about 2013 hiring year. We just released the same survey, and it's even higher now. So it is really just skyrocketing the last couple years. Why the increase? Obviously, all of these companies, if they're trying to get overseas and trying to expand their sales, they need people who can speak different languages, who have different ways of thinking, who can expand and work with overseas partners and take them new places they haven't been before. So we're seeing very good trends here. I think the numbers are on the next slide, actually. So company size, just to show you kind of what companies are hiring the foreigners. This shows the employees, amount of employees. So these are kind of small companies, mid and large enterprises, 1,000 plus employees. So 1,000 plus employee companies in 2013, they went from, this is 2012 to 13, so they jumped up 25% in 1 year hiring as a total number. Obviously just 8% with our survey. With 2014, this is even higher. So the amount of companies that did successfully hire foreigners of large companies was 54%. And even more interesting is the amount of companies that planned on hiring. Out of our survey of 1,000 plus, of large enterprises, 69% planned on hiring foreigners. So that means, the difference here was companies that were looking for foreigners to hire, but they just couldn't find the right ones. Maybe they couldn't find the right skills. But it shows that 7 out of 10 companies are looking for foreigners right now, out of the big companies. Very good trends that we're seeing. We're quite excited about it because hopefully we can all change Japan a little bit together for the better. So we do, in the same survey, we ask them about hiring study abroad students. So, why the interest? And one thing that we need to keep in mind as foreign job hunters here is that they don't just hire an American because he's American. They don't just hire, someone because they speak a language. They hire still to obtain excellent personnel. And these are all in Japanese. I just kind of translated them, so the translation's kind of weird. I'll just explain. They are looking for the best and the brightest. They're looking for smart people who can lead their company into the future, not just a language skill. Because anybody can do a language training program or something like that. They are a little bit more lenient for foreigners because they do have different skills, so they might not need as high of credentials, but they still are looking for smart, bright individuals who are motivated and hardworking. The other things are obviously international experience. Stimulate employees is very interesting. That's a big thing that we always get as an answer to these questions. And like shain o shigeki I think is what it's called. And what it means, I mean, it's weird English, but what it means is you get foreigners coming into a company, and maybe they're a very traditional Japanese company, and these people have never really worked outside of the Japanese way of thinking. They've always kind of done maybe top-down, and the new people don't really give their opinion as much, even if they have really good opinions because they're new, they don't know anything sort of mentality. And then you have these foreigners coming in, or Japanese people who've studied overseas that come back and look for jobs as well. And they get into companies and they have a different way of thinking. They're not top-down anymore. They're a little more open-minded, and they're more creative, and they voice their opinions. They're not afraid to maybe talk back to their boss and say he's probably wrong about something and give him some data and show him. And when employees first see that, they're like, "Oh no, don't do that. Just you're new. Don't worry about it. You don't have to pretend like you know anything or something like that." It's kind of a bad situation, obviously, but the managers love it. The CEOs, the executives, they love this because when you're getting people exchanging more opinions, everybody's discussing more things. They're more open. They're more creative. And one of the problems with Japan right now is that it's not as innovative enough. Getting more employees like that can come in and bring different ideas to the table is very important for these companies right now. And we hear great feedback from our clients, as well as dealing with international clients and overseas branches. So that comes into more maybe your home country or your language skills. This is the top reasons or the top things they look for when they hire in interviews and through everything. Japanese is still very, very important. So if you are going to look for a job in Japan, do everything you can to practice interview techniques or have a very colloquial, a very good conversation level of Japanese. I wasn't perfect at Japanese when I went and interviewed with companies at Boston Career Forum, actually, but still many of them were open to talk to me because I could have a good conversation. I may not have known all the business terms or, in one level, all this random stuff, but they felt comfortable communicating with me, and that's what they really look for. If they can, that's why it's number 2, communication skills. I use an example of like English speakers. Worldwide, kind of English is the business language right now. Who knows for how long that will be the case, but in Southeast Asia, everybody doesn't speak perfect English. I do a lot of business deals with a lot of people that sometimes they speak broken English, but they know how to use their language abilities to communicate very effectively. You don't have to use big, long words or really hard economic terms to be an effective communicator. So Japanese companies in general, they're very impressed with foreigners' communication abilities, or with Japanese people who study abroad's communication abilities. They find that it is much higher than the domestic Japanese student. So it puts you guys in an advantage, and definitely use that to your advantage when you're looking for jobs. And overall, English is always a top contender as well. I'm sure most of you guys are trilingual or quadrilingual or who knows how many languages, and they love that. They love that recently. So. Required Japanese level, this is obviously generally the biggest question. With technical majors, if you're an engineer or if you're a coder, lots of companies will not even ask. So you have about 30% that say it's not even necessary, or conversation level. It really depends on the company, but lots of tech firms now, they don't care about Japanese. If you have some good programming skills, good engineering skills, it's kind of a universal language a lot of the time. For humanities or business roles or anything else, basically, you do need probably about, I think I put a chart here, yeah. So you do need, and I think this is higher than 75%. This is the survey that we get, but in working with a lot of companies, almost every company will say, yeah, we need them to be at least in 2, maybe in 1. But they're open to talking with that person if they have good conversation skills, if they can, if they can get in and talk, even if they're not using the big words. So that's just kind of a relative, or like a starting point. In2 is about what they're going to look for. But when I did job hunting, I had no JLPT score at all, and the companies were still very open to talk with me. So don't let it scare you if you don't have a very high JLPT. Here's for interviews. We ask them what their most important quality is in candidates. And I haven't put this into English because shutaisei is a very difficult word. There's so many different ways you could translate it. I translate it as leadership. And you have to give the little atotsuke because it doesn't just mean leadership. It means like somebody who can really think critically, think on their own, and lead it to action, take initiative, make something happen. And they're very impressed with foreigners because they don't see that as much in Japanese people domestically. When they see that this person is a doer, if you give him a task, he's not going to sit there and ask all these questions and maybe spend 8 more hours in meetings to do it. He's going to go and do it. They really like that attitude, and I'm being very oversimplified here, but vague, I guess. Just for lack of any other way to describe it. But they really like people who take initiative and who go and get something done. In Japan, it's often not the case. Gogakuryoku is language skills, and then once again, dealing with different cultures. This, I think, is actually much higher. It's called taseishiko. It means the mentality of constantly thinking about like a goal-oriented person, very goal-oriented. So if you can come up and, if they can see in your resume and see in your interviews that this is why I came to Japan, this is why I studied Japanese, this is why I studied my major, I have these goals in life, and this is how I'm accomplishing that. That comes out a lot stronger than I came to Japan because I like One Piece anime, and I thought I might go over for a little bit and see cool Japan, go to Akihabara. These type of people come out much, much stronger. If you can put reasons behind all of your actions that are on your resume, for example, and talk about them with a professional goal in mind. Very impressed by that. Japanese students studying abroad. Oh, so here's So that's great. They're interested in hiring all these international people. They're excited to globalize and do everything. But you look at the Japanese students going abroad, and it's dropped drastically. So this, once again, the Japanese government's not very good at updating figures. I think we might have 2012 by now, even in 2015. But it's dropped very, very bad figures that we're seeing here. So what this means is there's less global Japanese people, less English-speaking Japanese people that have been overseas for a long amount of time, and less open-mindedness, everything in the new graduate recruitment scene right now. So that opens up opportunities for us because now they're looking at foreigners more. Obviously, that's the big problem. We help by creating these career forums. So we've been doing it for about 30 years now, 40-something years as a company, but Boston Career Forum we started 27, 28 years ago. It's our biggest event. We've helped over 270,000 people meet with more than 7,000 international corporations. We've done a good job at bringing Japanese companies around the world, but right now I think the focus is more on all the international people that are in Japan, and there's a really big need for that. So we're trying to kind of pivot here and provide more opportunities locally. We have them worldwide, from China to, I'm starting up something in Southeast Asia, coming up here in Jakarta, Sydney, Tokyo, twice, 3, 4 times a year, London, New York, Boston, and LA. So yeah, it's been quite an adventure. For you guys, the upcoming events that are the best ones to go to is, this is the Gaikokujin Ryugakusei no Tame no Career Forum. I think you guys have, yeah, it's the one with all the little circles. The weird little circles. I didn't realize those are flags, but those are flags. Yeah, so this one is not a huge event. There will probably be like 30 to 40 companies usually, but they are looking specifically for foreign people. So it does provide some good opportunities. And we don't even let Japanese people in as candidates, just so you know. We're kind of racist. I don't think we could do that in America, but we can do it here. The ASEAN Spring Job Fair, if you are from an ASEAN country, a Southeast Asian country, I think there's 10 or 11 countries there. Most of the time companies are looking for people from like Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, Myanmar, Singapore. I mean, Cambodia and Laos. Some of those others might be in there, but most of the time it's those kind of the bigger economic ones because they're all looking at projects in there for immediately, or maybe they just started one, or maybe they're coming up with one. This is a very good opportunity for people from those places, or if you speak one of the languages from those countries very well. So even if you're not from there, it's really about the language in some aspects. And then our big ones are Tokyo Summer Career Forum. Has anybody been out to Tokyo Summer, Tokyo Winter? Graduated? Already, right? You haven't been to Tokyo Summer Career Forum? Okay. I recommend going. This is for Japanese English bilinguals. This is like our Boston Career Forum. Last year we had 240 companies and maybe, I don't know, 6,000 or 7,000 people within the 2 days. It's a very big event. There are companies they're hiring on the spot. They're doing interviews on the spot. Come very well prepared, and you could easily walk away with a job in just 1 or 2 days. And these are all on careerforum.net. I think it might be on your flyers. I'll show you the address at the end as well. And then Boston Career Forum, I don't recommend it because it's very far away, but usually when I give seminars, even 1 or 2, 3 people sometimes from Japan have actually gone over and looked for jobs there. Boston does have, if you're interested in really high-end consulting firms, Goldman Sachs, BCG, Booz, and Bain, and all those companies will be out at Boston every year. And they're looking for kind of, the best and brightest from Japanese people usually, or foreigners who are studying in America to come back and work for their Japanese side. So I'll just throw it out there. And then we also have Tokyo Winter Career Forum that has about 100 plus companies in December-ish. You can check out the website. Obviously work with anything, all the big names, anything from manufacturing companies to all of the tech firms to all of the electronic firms to A lot of kind of new venture companies are starting to come out to do events. A lot of different, everything really. All the banks, all the international ones. So yeah, it's a good job. It's a good opportunity. We'll talk a little bit about how to use these opportunities now. So sorry, I've been going pretty fast. If you do have questions, just throw a hand up, and we can chat about it. If not, I'll keep going. So this is the biggest thing that I had a problem with. Job hunting in Japan is very different. It's nothing like it is in America. In America, what we would do is we'd graduate in May, and maybe in June and July we'd go home, eat mom's food for a while. I don't know, like make a resume, you know, hang out, and then finally start applying to jobs maybe a couple months after graduation even. Or maybe you already have like a baito, like a part-time job, and you just do it for a while. In Japan, that's not the case. Everybody is very strict with the job hunting schedule, and it's just a very interesting situation here. So don't treat it lightly, is my only advice. You have to start early. Okay, so I said half, but obviously for the people who maybe haven't done it already, it's not an end-over situation sort of thing. You do still have chances. That's why Tokyo Summer or Tokyo Winter is a good opportunity, because they don't look as much about the graduation date. But if you're talking about general, if you want the best chance at getting a job in Japan, start early. We'll talk about the schedule in a second. Participate in events. These career forums and these career fairs, they're weird. We don't do them as much in America, but it is the primary way that people go and talk with companies here. And you do have to often go to their booths at an event and participate in a information session just to give them your entry sheet, just to give them a resume sort of thing, you know, just to apply. And you also have to know about the company a lot of the time. Japanese companies are very interested in why a disco? Why were you interested in us? Like, if you don't have some big life story about why you want to join disco, then I don't think you're for us. You know, there are some companies that really think that way. So, I mean, you don't have to go that far, but you definitely need to know about the company. If you have a few intelligent comments you can say. This goes back to America or worldwide as well, but in Japan even more so, because everybody does it so much. The Japanese people are very knowledgeable about lots of the companies they're applying for, so that is your competition. The process is also very weird. Who has a recruit suit? No? Yes, recruit suits? Okay, there we go. So right now, if you walk by any of the suit shops, you can see a very black suit with like probably a tie like this and a white shirt, definitely. It's the same exact suit in every suit store countrywide, right? And they're called recruit suits. And there's like 2 different variations for girls, one with skirt, one with pants, and there's one variation for guys, obviously. And everybody, you go to these events with 35,000 plus people, and every single person has on the same exact suit. There's like gray like this, no one will have this color. Even this, I mean, it's kind of a mild, I'm not trying to like praise myself, but it's a mild professional color, but they wouldn't use that. They would only use the recruit suit. As a foreigner, we're not held by the same standards, but you might be if you're going to very domestic hiring events. They might still kind of expect closer to Japanese to show that you understand the Japanese culture. They do appreciate that. And also they do handwritten entry sheets. Has anybody written an entry sheet? You? Have you tried entry sheets yet? Only on, okay, that's good. That's good. Japanese people that participate in this traditional style, they will write entry sheets by hand, and it's a whole thing, and they'll do that for every company they want to apply to. And some people apply to 100, 200 companies. And you know, if they make one mistake, they throw it away because you don't want that mistake to be the reason that your resume was dropped. Anyways, it's really interesting, really a sad situation, but you may be asked to write one later on. If you come to the career forums, usually the companies are much more open to just a resume. I only took an English resume when I went personally, And every company that I talked to was at least accepting of that. They usually have people that speak English, for example. But the traditional process is this way. Feel free to give it a test. And then they also do a lot of personality and skill tests. They do like sometimes 5, 6, 7 interviews spread out over months sometimes. It can be very stressful situation. So let's, sorry, the recruitment schedule changed this year. I'm going to skip over this slide fast and just show you this year. So if you do graduate, if you're already graduated, then you got to start going to maybe places where they're more open, like the Tokyo Summer and Winter Career Forums, or some of these international events, because Japanese companies do understand international people don't follow the schedule as much. But if you are graduating in 2016 or 2017, or if you have friends that are, recommend this schedule to them. This is what's going to happen this year. So right now, internships are going on. Has school, oh, school already started, huh? I guess internships are kind of over. Semester of school is kind of continuing now. Entries, they call it entry start. It's going to start in March this year for 2016. So this is a year before you graduate. You graduate in March of 2016. 2015, start entries, and there will be tons of career fairs in March, April, May. All of the domestic ones are huge, huge events at Tokyo Big Sight are all going to be in March and April. And so companies come out, they have thousands of students come to them, and they write the entry sheets and they hand them in, and they start the process. And after all of that, it's their marketing phase, but they do all get all their applicants in that time. In about August, they'll start doing a lot of interviews, pre-offers, maybe even June and July. Some might start early, even though they're not allowed to by law. And this is a very strict schedule because of that. It's all decided by an economic group above everybody. So anyways, the offers should kind of be given out by August, September. And then in October, technically you get, so this is, in Japanese, this is naite, and this is like naite, right? So you have like the pre-offer and then the final offer in a lot of these situations. And that'll be out even, it's still half a year before you graduate. So there's graduation in March if you're on the Japanese school schedule. And then you start April 1st. And everybody in the entire country starts work on April 1st, just like everybody starts school on April 1st. So it's a nice system. It works out beautifully for them, but it's very difficult for people who aren't used to it, because I would never have thought to start looking for jobs a year and a half before I graduate. So just so that you are aware of the system and aware that maybe you didn't fit into it, so you can change your strategy for talking with companies. We'll leave a bit of time open for Q&A at the end, so I'll kind of breeze through these a little bit. But we'll talk about what companies want to know. Japanese companies are very interesting. So I guess I should start out with kind of the end of this. But in Japan, you know that lifetime employment is very common, right? Even now, like for my company here, I do have technically lifetime employment. It's just the way things work here. Our company's never fired anybody. You don't really cut wages, so people are just happy-go-lucky, and once you're in a company, you're set for life, sort of thing. So the things they look for is not the same as an international firm. An international firm might look at immediate ROI, immediate return on their investment of hiring you. We're paying you money. How soon can you start making us money? That's what they're going to look at. So what type of skills do you have? What experience do you have? A Japanese firm will look more at your fit overall with the company. So they'll look at your resume to see your skills, where you went to school and stuff like that. And then the other big part is the personality. Does this person, does he look like somebody who would be at disco? Does he talk like somebody who would be at disco? And you can never find that out through just a 30-minute interview, but they try to, and they put a heavy emphasis on corporate culture. So if you could, before an interview, how to use this to your advantage, I would say maybe look into the company. Try to find out how people in that company are acting. If you have a friend who's in the company, try to get him to introduce you to people. And you can say, okay, you know what, this company has this type of a culture to it. It would be much better if I maybe brought out some of these stories of my past in interviews. You know, kind of work your way and show that you can belong to their corporate culture. Japanese companies definitely like that. As well as we already talked about with international students, this isn't as big of a problem, but enthusiasm and passion and determination, we already kind of have a little bit more of that just innately versus our Japanese counterparts. So, and they look at both of these in decision-making process. So that's all that is. Skills as well as values. So like in America, you might not ask people about their values as much. And we'll just skip over this really quickly. But once again, it comes back to, you know, why are you interested in our company? Like, how would you fit with our company? How would you work with that team? Let's all grow together sort of collective mentality. And they're looking for that. Of course, career views, as we already talked about, I like Japan is not a valid reason to be in Japan. You definitely want to do some self-analysis. Everybody's here because we like Japan for some reason, but that's not a good answer for an interview. I love Japan, but if somebody says in an interview, looking for a position, why did you come, or why are you in Japan? I'm gonna say, you know, because I had strong professional goals regarding, I really wanted to learn Japanese business. I wanted to elevate my level of Japanese to a level that no other foreigner's at, and I wanted to become an international businessman, and that was my best avenue for it. You guys have been an amazing economy for, you know, stuff like that. That's a much stronger answer than because I like Japan, even though I do. So really take some time to think about yourself, think about why you're here, what your goals are professionally, and how that fits into the company. That makes a much better and stronger application. Research the companies. We'll talk about, this is a little bit more important. So the weak job hunter, and I left this in Japanese, but the weak job hunter goes in and says, "Nani nani o benkyou shimashita?" I studied blank. I can do blank. I have knowledge about blank, and I have this experience, you know. And that's all they say. And lots of people think that's job hunting, but it's not. So before you go to an interview, everybody has given someone a resume, right? So what does your resume say? Your resume is going to say these same things. Your resume says what you studied, it says what you can do, it says what you have knowledge in and what you have experience at. Your resume already answered all those questions. You don't have an interview to talk about those. You can talk about them a little bit, but the point of the interview is to decide, you already passed the resume scan. The point of the interview is to find out more about the person, more about, you know, if they can fit that role well, if they're going to fit in the company, etc. So try to focus on, so okay, what did you study in school? Well, I studied international business because I really wanted to come into a Japanese firm and become a proficient international businessman. Is a little bit more. It gives you more insight into the person than just what the resume can give. And that's what they're looking for when they're in these. And lots of times, even interviewers don't know the right questions to ask. So you have to kind of lead sometimes for this. So, oh, I didn't put these animations on correctly. Strong job hunter, don't ignore the bottom right side for a second. So you have your personality, your values, your skills, and what you want to do in life, your ambition. And those are three big main parts of what they're going to look at in a person. The really strong person, so for example, I have communication skills and, you know, I'm good at talking to people. I have JLPT1 and I can speak Japanese. And I really want to work in Asia through marketing and business development. So how does that work with my position right now? How do these three things add to each other as a multiplier to create a better whole picture? And how does that role, how does that big picture relate to the job position? If you can go into an interview and talk about that, you're much stronger. And the shushokuyoku, I don't know if that's an actual thing, but I think people talk about it, and it means employability. It means someone who is very strong at finding jobs. We'll give a little example. So study abroad, everybody's doing study abroad, obviously. I did as well. And so here we're looking at the future us, right? what you want to be in 5 years, in 10 years, next week, whatever you want to say as an example, the first thing we have to do is say, okay, you know what, who am I? What am I really looking at? What am I trying to get out of life? What do I want to do for a career? What would make me happy? And those are hard questions. No one knows the answer perfectly, but you do need to think about it. And then you need to kind of imagine, okay, you know, in 10 years, if I want to do that, okay, so I need to do this job first and do this and maybe study this a little bit more to get there. I mean, just basic analysis first off. Then, so with study abroad, as our example once again, so what did you actually get from your study abroad experience, and how does that tie to the future you that you want to be? Even if it's not language, even if I went back to America after study abroad and said, you know, I went to Japan, I saw the world, and it made me want to work in America more because of these reasons. They really like the getting to know you and learning more about your psychology behind the process and seeing that you are goal-oriented once again. So third, where the relevance is, you know, where is the connector between your experiences up until now, study abroad in this case, or internship, or language, or anything, even something that happened in your childhood. How does that relate to your career goals? And then finally, how do those career goals and how does this whole picture relate to the job position at hand? So once again, bringing it back to me, obviously my study abroad experience greatly influenced me and made me want to do international business, and that's why I joined Disco in order to work on a global business development team to create new business plans all over the world. And that is probably why they hired me, because they could see that. Finally, we'll just talk really quickly about Japanese companies. So we talked about lifetime employment and how that affects their way of thinking for hiring, right? Wages by age is a big thing here, and that's kind of hurt creativity. For example, in a lot of Japanese companies still, if you're 30 years old and you've worked here 5 years, I guess 8 years it would be correct, and the person next to you is 30 years old and he's worked there 8 years, and maybe you're doing a job that's making tons of money, and maybe he's not motivated and, I don't know, doesn't really do much. Maybe he works in like back office and just really doesn't do anything. You could still be making the same exact amount of money at some of these corporations. There might be a little bit of a difference, but not too much in a lot of them. Japanese companies are changing. This is very traditional, but still you will see it. So be aware that it affects how they think about the job hunting process, as well as kind of, you know, really protected labor unions here. Really protected society, collective, everybody work together sort of thing. Very, very different than an international firm, obviously. Once again, becoming less common, but it helps you understand what their goals are in recruitment. So we'll just do really quickly here. With a Japanese company, you guys are in a good position because they hire tons of new graduates. So this is kind of hard to understand, but the size of the arrow, the thickness, shows how many people they're taking in at that time. So a lot of new graduates, big training sessions, sometimes 1 month, sometimes a full year of just training, just nothing but training. When you join on April 1st, until March 30th of the next year, you just do training. That's unheard of in an American firm. You would never do that. You want immediate ROI. You want your return on these people. Not for Japanese firms. They look at the big picture, which is very impressive. You don't have very many people quitting, so you don't really have to hire very many people because, you know, it works its way down. You do training to get up to middle management. Not very many people quitting. Once again, not very many hires, and that goes all the way up. Then we have the foreign company. Very few new grads. So if you are looking at firms in America or international firms here, you probably know, but they won't even accept your resume if it doesn't have some type of experience, some type of hard skills, internship experience, or good work experience, even at the new grad level, because they want that return. They want you to make money right away. And you have people quitting, people being fired all the time. That's not in Japan. You don't traditionally fire people that much. In foreign companies, I'm talking mainly America, you do. So all the way up the ladder, you have tons of people hiring for all these different positions, and you hire specialists because you want an accountant who can make you money within a month, within 3 months. In Japan, they might hire someone as a new grad who isn't an accountant and put him in accounting 5 years later and train him. So once again, this all comes back to Japanese companies. They do appreciate experience, but a lot of what they're looking at is you as a person, how this person can work with our company. So definitely do your research on companies, understand better who you are and how you fit in that company, and how you can work together. And that will give you a much better opportunity at finding jobs. We're getting pretty late on time here, so we'll close up. Just really simple. In Japan, this is true all over the world, but more so in Japan. Customer's always right. They say kyaku wa kami, like customer is God. Literally, our sales teams here, they will do anything for customers. They're very dedicated to your clients. In America, our customers, we say, yeah, sure, I can do it next week, or we kind of blow them off. Not all the time, but different attitude. In Japan, very, very important. Quality control. Kaizen, you guys probably have heard about that through manufacturing. It was actually American that made it, but it was developed by Japanese car manufacturers and put into place by them. And it's not just in manufacturing. It's in every aspect of Japanese people's lives. I give this example quite often, but hobbies. So shumi, right? I often am asked if I have a hobby, and I'm like, yeah, I like to golf, and I like to play tennis, and I like to play sports and do this and that. But if you ask a Japanese person what their hobby is, usually they will say it's golf. And if they say it's golf, they go golfing every weekend. They have like the full suit. There's golf like socks. They have like the special golf gloves. And I've been golfing forever, but I don't have the full get up. They're very, very serious about it, and it is their hobby. They want to be the best possible at golf when they're doing that, and they do that at work. They do that at study. They're very, very impressive people. Whereas I'm like, yeah, I golf. I kind of tekito. A little bit different of an environment, but it's very good in the workforce. I think there's good things to be learned on both sides, and that's why they're looking at globalizing. So, and then keeping time and teamwork. Maybe things that we're not as used to overseas. I showed up quite a bit late today, for example, but I think in Japan it is like kind of taboo almost. They will be at their desk ready to, they've already gotten their coffees and gone to the bathroom and done everything, and they start working right the minute. If not before, that work does start, is the general population here. So very important things here, very serious about work, and very impressive. So market shrinking. They need more foreigners in the workforce. Go global. We, as foreigners, you need to start early, research, analyze yourself, and apply. Apply, get out there and start talking to companies. And once again, come to some of our career forums. Here's me. If you are going to be a professional in Japan, please hook up on LinkedIn, and maybe we'll do business sometime together. So, thank you.